Qian Hui's body is so large that a single step makes the earth tremble. The people didn't believe in earthquakes, but when the young master walked, it seemed as if the world was ending. Everyone was completely shocked by his immense size. He was so heavy that his weight already exceeded several hundred kilograms. Inside this body lived the soul of Wen Hui, who once dreamed of becoming the supreme master of martial arts. Yet in his current form, he was so weak that a mosquito landing on his neck was enough to make him stagger and fall. The thud of his gigantic body collapsing could be heard from the other side of the country. This soul, Wen Hui, had lived a previous life. His original body was torn and unusable, but he knew that one day a man would appear and destroy the entire Murim. That man was truly incredible and unified the martial world through chaos, a conflict in which Wen Hui's own parents died. Because of his potential, the ordinary and weak Wen Hui was accepted as a disciple by 6 masters of the orthodox sects. He underwent infernal training where living was worse than death. They tried to pierce him, freeze him, and burn him alive. This strengthened his body, all part of his master's plan to make him powerful enough to stop the coming disaster. He was then sent back in time to change the fate of the world, but he never imagined he would end up in Qian Hui's fat, useless body, which was unable to practice martial arts. Back in the present, he was being treated by the doctor, Zhang Gok. Wen Hui, now living as Qian Hui, was trying to figure out how to defeat the traitorous servant who would cause all the chaos. He remembered that he first needed to obtain the millennial virgin ginseng before the traitor could. As the doctor and his attendant Huang Bo argued over his health, Qian Hui finally recalled that the servant would acquire the ginseng in 6 months. He needed to act now. He immediately got up, telling his father that he needed to walk. His father, Qian Iktai, called for a massive chair to be brought, carried by the strongest men available. But Qian Hui refused, insisting he wanted to walk alone. Witnessing this, his father's eyes grew moist. His son hadn't walked by himself since he was 10 years old. In the following days, he trained relentlessly, walking around the courtyards for a month. However, his tone-heavy body showed no signs of change. He got on a large scale to check, but it didn't budge. The rope on the counterweight, piled high with a whole herd of pigs, even snapped under the strain. While Qian Hui struggled to remember the traitor's name, his vassal Huang Bo tried to console him, explaining that weight loss doesn't happen overnight. He suggested focusing on diet, reducing sugar, and increasing protein and exercises to strengthen his muscles. Huang Bo warned it could take a long time, but Qian Hui didn't care. He was fixated on the traitor who would appear in Anhui province to seek the millennial virgin ginseng. He realized he could find him there. Laughing with satisfaction, he imagined crushing the man with invincible strength and living a quiet life afterward. Seeing this sudden change, Huang Bo thought his master had gone mad from the stress of his diet and ran to get the doctor. He brought the old Zhang Gok running. Zhang Gok was a renowned physician who at 30 entered the selection exam to be the emperor's doctor, and at 50 attained enlightenment in his own medical techniques. Qian Hui asked if he could prepare various weight loss remedies that would work in 6 months. The doctor happily said it was possible, but it would take 3 years combined with rigorous exercise. Frustrated, Qian Hui killed a mosquito on the doctor's neck and called him a charlatan. However, Zhang Gok then proposed a different method. If he couldn't walk on land, he should walk underwater. They arrived at a nearby stream. After carrying him all the way, the men were exhausted. Qian Hui slowly entered the water, thinking the buoyancy would relieve the pressure on his bones and muscles. Suddenly, he slipped and fell into a deep section. It seemed he might float thanks to his large belly, but instead he sank like a submarine. His vassal Huang Bo still hadn't realized the danger, thinking he was happily swimming. He even thought his master had the potential to become a professional swimmer, until another servant warned that the riverbed might be steeper than it looked. Finally, understanding, Huang Bo panicked and rushed to help, but an ordinary person couldn't possibly lift Qian Hui's giant body. Meanwhile, as he lost consciousness, memories of this body's past at 2 years old surfaced in Qian Hui's mind. He recalled his mother dying while protecting him. Just as his strength failed, a girl pulled him to the shore, saving his life. Back at their home, Huang Bo faced the wrath of Qian Hui's father, but after it was revealed that the doctor had suggested the idea, things calmed down. Qian Hui's sister, Qian Ayang, whose maid had saved him at the stream, pointed out that it wasn't necessary to go into such deep water to exercise. Later in his room, Qian Hui awoke to see his beautiful older sister. He couldn't believe this exceptional beauty was his sister while he was fat and seen as stupid. His sister's maid asked if she could help him up. Though he thought it impossible for her alone, she lifted him with ease, saying it was a piece of cake. The next day, Qian Hui was taken to a new location for his weight loss program. His subordinates were surprisingly happy, despite the effort of carrying his mammoth-like weight. They had built him a 5-star kiddie pool, an idea from his older sister. He no longer needed to risk the dangerous stream. As he walked to his new fully prepared pool, even the onlookers cheered him on, sweating from the excitement of such a small act. Qian Hui asked Huang Bo about his father Qian Iktai. The vassal described the patriarch as a great master, whom all disciples admired, a symbol of purity and integrity, who opened his warehouses to feed the hungry. In Qianhui's cynical view, his father was just an old lecher. But he soon realized that his father's reputation meant that even if he did nothing as the patriarch's son, he was guaranteed food and a beautiful life. He laughed loudly at this realization, perplexing those around him. The pool was ready. Qianhui jumped in, causing gigantic waves. He had his guard prepare a large stone ball to tie to his leg for resistance. However, when the guard threw the stone, its weight pulled Qianhui down into the pool, which was deeper than it looked. He sank like the Titanic. Underwater, he began to practice the internal energy method from his past life, the spiritual energy heart cultivation technique. His masters had developed it to guard against water-based martial arts. Instead of channeling energy into a core, it focused on the heart, using blood vessels instead of energy veins. He finally succeeded, and internal energy began to flow through him. He could feel the flow of the water and control it. He then used the most powerful move of the Shaolin's strongest fist technique, the mystical fist of the 100 steps, which hit the water's surface and caused a terrible disturbance. After a month of frenetic underwater training, leveraging his past knowledge, he had rapidly advanced. It was time to check his progress. He asked Huang Bo to prepare the scale. This time, after a moment of suspense, the scale showed that his gigantic weight had finally decreased a bit. The rope didn't even break. Qianhui laughed wildly with happiness, and Huang Bo admitted he had doubted him. Now Qianhui needed to get stronger quickly to stop the demon of chaos. He ate everything in sight and then cultivated before the food could fully digest, repeating this cycle for 2 months. Now at the bottom of the pool, he could use a palm technique to make the surface water churn violently. Huang Bo, watching in disbelief, muttered, "How is that arrogant pig able to do that?" At that moment, the patriarch Qian Iktai appeared behind him, furious. He looked ready to kill Huang Bo, but his personal bodyguard instead ordered the soldiers to take Huang Bo away to rest as a reward for all his effort. The vassal cried with happiness. Qian Iktai was overjoyed that his son could now use a palm martial art. Although he had wanted Qianhui to follow the academic path, he would fully support his martial practice. His face turned serious, and he ordered paper and ink to send a message to the imperial palace. The next day, his father presented him with the divine manual of the heavens. Qianhui's face grew serious. This was a manual granted by the emperor himself, a clear sign of his father's immense influence. His father, Qian Iktai, explained that he had recently mentioned to the emperor that his son had started practicing martial arts. In response, the emperor personally chose the best martial arts manual from the palace for him. Little did Qianhui know what his father was truly capable of. The old man had sent letters to the emperor every day, pestering him until he relented. He had secured the manual through humorous blackmail, acting like a pouting friend to win the emperor's favor. On top of this, Qianhui's brother-in-law, Dam Ho Qian, his older sister's husband, was assigned to be his instructor. Dam Ho Qian boasted that his martial arts school was the most famous in the province. Compared to Wen Hui's true strength, this man was merely an apprentice, but Qianhui couldn't reveal his true power yet. He had to kneel and accept his brother-in-law as his master. His father was so moved by this display of humility that his eyes looked like a waterfall. How had his son become so polite? The truth was simpler. He was kneeling for so long because he was too heavy to get back up and needed his brother-in-law's help. In the following days, he endured Dam Ho Qian's training, which felt more like torture. The man insulted him constantly, even calling him a whale. Furious Qianhui challenged his master, claiming he could prove he already understood the basic principles of the technique. Dam Ho Qian laughed loudly, thinking it was a joke. But when Qianhui taunted him, asking if he was scared, he immediately agreed to the duel. To balance the fight, he sealed his internal energy and even tied his own arms. Qianhui activated his combat technique. It was strong and surprisingly fast, but still hampered by his heavy body. His brother-in-law was shocked at how naturally he combined different fighting styles. Qianhui's power had its limits in this body, so he had to win quickly. He easily knocked down Dam Ho Qian, who begged for mercy before being knocked out cold. Sometime later, the defeated instructor was so sore he couldn't even scratch his own head, asking his wife Qian Ah Young to do it for him. She was overjoyed at her brother's progress, having always believed he was a martial genius. One day, Qianhui was walking down the street. He had never seen people so happy before. Merchants called out and children played everywhere. He remembered his past life where dead bodies were scattered everywhere and people lived with constant hunger and fear. The demon of chaos had destroyed everything in his path, taking away everyone's peace. But now, when the townspeople saw Qianhui, they ran to him full of admiration. Can the young master really be walking on his own legs? Everyone wondered, completely amazed. They showered him with gifts and delicious food. He was just walking, but their kindness made him heavier and heavier. He couldn't refuse their generosity, and became more determined than ever to save this world. These good people didn't deserve to die. At that moment, he sensed a martial arts master watching him. The hidden master was stunned that the fat man had noticed him, but quickly dismissed it as a coincidence. How could a man like that possibly detect him? But suddenly, Cheon-hui appeared right behind him. Startled, the man attacked with all his strength. The attack sent Cheon-hui flying a shocking feat considering his immense weight, and he was knocked unconscious. The man used the opportunity to flee. When he woke up, Cheon-hui was furious, vowing to find the man who hit him. He pretended not to care when people asked if he was hurt, but it was obvious he was in pain. The incident made him even more determined to become stronger. Meanwhile, his father and sister were discussing his future. His father wanted to propose a marriage that would make Cheon-hui a famous general, but his sister argued it was too early. His son's recent change was surely related to breaking off the engagement with the daughter of the Namgung clan, a girl who had no desire to marry and wanted to forge her own path in martial arts. Cheon-hui's father was determined to ask for the girl's hand in marriage again as soon as possible. The men from the Namgung clan were already nearby, trying to find a fair way to refuse the proposal. At the same time, Cheon-hui headed to the Beggars sect to gather information about the millennial virgin ginseng. However, he learned that it had been over 20 years since the Beggars disappeared from the area, as his father had built houses for them. Simultaneously, Namgung Cheon, the lord of the Namgung clan, was at the provincial Beggars sect office, trying to investigate the records on Cheon-hui for the marriage proposal. A beggar explained that Cheon-hui was a special case classified as celestial level, because he was the patriarch's son, and they couldn't release his information without permission from the central office. Impatient Namgung Cheon threw down a stack of coins, but it wasn't enough. He then presented his family ring, a treasure of inestimable value that signified the protection of the Namgung clan, as payment. Just as the beggar chief was about to hand over the information, Cheon-hui arrived at the very same office. The place was too fancy to be a beggar's den. A guard outside called him fat and told him to leave as an important person was inside. Cheon-hui ignored him and tried to enter, declaring he was the patriarch's son. The guard struck him in the face and insulted him. Enraged, Cheon-hui prepared to repay the humiliation with his fists. Inside, Namgung Cheon was about to read the report when a commotion erupted outside. The guard who had hit Cheon-hui was now fighting him, completely underestimating the fat man's speed. Cheon-hui taunted the guard, saying his clan's infinite sky sword technique was useless at such a low level. All the guard needed to do was apologize, but he became even more irritated and drew his sword. Cheon-hui defeated him instantly. He then hoisted the man up and began slapping his face, intent on educating him properly. Suddenly, a voice from above shouted for him to stop. A man landed swiftly between them. Cheon-hui backed away, but he immediately recognized the man's brutal martial arts style. He knew he couldn't confront it directly in his current body. The style increased energy bursts through rotation, and Cheon-hui planned to use a counter-rotation to reverse it. But then he faltered, his focus lost. The man in front of him was Namgung Jin, the very man who was his master, the Sword King, in his past life. He was familiar with these movements, but the end result was the same. He was soundly beaten. Namgung Jin was surprised, noting that the fat man managed to disperse the power of his explosive lightning mystic fist. As Cheon-hui struggled to get up, his eyes gleamed with killing intent. Namgung Jin noticed this and moved toward him, but Cheon-hui's subordinates rushed to protect him as he fell unconscious. At that moment, the chief of the Beggars sect division emerged and finally realized the fat man was the patriarch's adoptive son. "Who dares to harm the chief's son?" he shouted, and everyone looked at Namgung Jin with hatred. His father, Namgung Cheon, understood everything in an instant and tore up the information he had just bought. It was useless now. If Namgung Jin wasn't Cheon-hui's future son-in-law, he would have been severely punished. The chief of the Beggars sect knelt to apologize, and the beggar next to Namgung Jin told him to do the same, explaining that the man he had attacked was respected even by the emperor. Just as the patriarch's anger was about to explode, Cheon-hui walked out looking completely fine. His sister had forced him into a new hairstyle to look more handsome. He went directly to Namgung Cheon, greeted him, and then turned to Namgung Jin, declaring himself to be his uncle, despite being only 17. Cheon-hui had waited a long time for this day. In his past life, this man, his master, had slapped him countless times. Although it hurt, there was nothing he could do back then. Now he finally had the chance for petty revenge. He pinched Namgung Jin's cheek and made him call him uncle. He was so happy to see his former master that he started crying, thinking, "Now I can finally get my revenge. Why did you bully me?" After everyone sat down, Namgung Cheon was still trying to figure out how to refuse the marriage contract. It was then that Cheon-hui unexpectedly rejected the marriage himself. He declared that he was busy training to save the world and that the timing wasn't right. He complained that the marriage had been arranged without their consent. Hearing this, his father was shocked. Qian Hui then looked pointedly at Nam Gung Jin and the beggar chief, remarking that the martial world was full of bandits, thieves, and mercenaries. They had no choice but to relent and remain silent. He got up to leave, considering the matter closed. As he left, he told the chief of the beggars sect that they needed to have a little chat. He wanted information about the millennial virgin ginseng, the current state of martial arts, and the ancient masters of his lineage. His eyes became malicious. It was time for revenge, and time to accept a disciple. Later, back at the pool, his vassal Huang Bo was begging him to come inside and rest. Qian Hui didn't seem to care until his beautiful sister and her attendant arrived, also telling him it was time to rest. Qian Hui's attendant, Huang Bo, saw his sister's maid, Sowol, and became completely infatuated, even though the woman looked as strong as a two-legged tractor. His sister, Qian Young, knowing he intended to travel to the Murim, asked if he had forgotten what happened to their mother. Qian Hui knew she died because of unfinished business in the martial world. He simply asked if she thought he seemed untrustworthy and weak. This caught her off guard. He asserted that nothing bad would ever happen to their clan again because he wouldn't allow it. His sister was overjoyed, saying with a wide smile, "You're no longer a child." She caressed our young master, remarking that he had grown quite a bit sideways perhaps. Qian Hui wondered why his lovely sister was being so friendly. This was all very strange. Or was this what having a family was supposed to feel like? After some time passed, the pool water stirred as someone leaped out. This person declared that the time had finally come. The vassal rushed over, telling his master to be careful. After all his training, our protagonist had transformed into a flabby man with loose skin. Winter arrived. Back at his father's palace, the old man told him he shouldn't go out, worrying that he was now too thin and might get caught in a gust of wind and fly away. But Qian Hui insisted he had to go as he needed to train Nam Gung Jin. He announced he was going to visit his uncle in Anhui province and prepared to leave. While packing in his room, he was happy to finally have his freedom and wished to leave without anyone recognizing him. Little did he know, a large carriage was being prepared outside, accompanied by over 20 guards. All these people would be a nuisance, so he came up with an idea. He invited everyone inside to drink with him, announcing they would leave the next morning. His sister, planning to bid him farewell, heard her brother's voice and the sounds of other drunks. She decided to wait for him outside. Moments later, Qian Hui had poisoned the guards, not with alcohol, but with a temporary substance that dispersed their internal energy. They wouldn't be able to move until the next morning. It was a paralyzing agent his doctor had given him for protection. As he was about to leave, his sister approached. She hugged him and asked him to take care of himself. "Don't take risks," she said. "If you feel too tired or afraid, you can come back any time. Father and I will always be here waiting for you." He then took the best horse from the stables, a gift from the emperor, and set off on his journey. The next day, he arrived at a small village. The locals viewed him with suspicion, thinking he was at least a chicken thief. He had to disguise himself as an officer sent by the Qian clan, claiming he was there to look for something for his master's son. He asked if they had noticed a stone emitting a red light on the mountain. An old man told him he had seen it several times while walking on Pungwol Mountain at sunset, describing it as a red light shining like a beam. Qian Hui quickly asked for the location. The old man warned him not to go, as it was the territory of the 9 Dragons clan, who were not ordinary bandits, but extremely cruel. This only confirmed for Qian Hui that he was in the right place. He pleaded with the old man to guide him, and seeing his desperation, the old man agreed. They set off into the forest. When they arrived near the stronghold, Qian Hui didn't want to endanger the old man's life, so he asked for directions from there and assured him he would be well rewarded. At sunset, the red light shone. It was the millennial virgin ginseng. He moved with all speed, planning to fight underwater if discovered, where he would have an advantage. He finally reached the 9 Dragons stronghold but didn't want to use force. He began to spread his spiritual energy in search of the ginseng. Instead, he found a bandit beating a woman. When her child started crying, the man turned on the child. Without hesitation, Qian Hui intervened. In a split second, the bandit was lifeless on the ground. He hadn't intended to get involved, but seeing the child with her mother, he decided to help them to the end. More guards emerged from a nearby hut. Our protagonist, with the loose skin, quickly put them all to sleep and tossed them into a nearby cabin. Inside, he noticed several other captured citizens. He had no choice but to help them too. The people were too nervous to be rational, so he made the child's mother their leader to guide them to safety. A plan was set in motion. When one of the guards entered the cabin to check on his men, he found them sleeping soundly on the floor. Before he could react, the man with the flabby skin struck his neck and he went to sleep with his comrades. It was time to proceed. The objective was the main guard post. Qian Hui crossed the area in the blink of an eye. He appeared under the guard post, a torch in one hand, and imbued a punch with immense power. He struck the post with all his force, knocking it down along with the guard who was on duty. From afar, the captured people watched in disbelief, but they remembered this was their signal to evacuate. An absurdly fast figure, the man with the loose skin, ran through the camp with a torch, setting fire to the cabins, determined to turn the place into a living hell. The bandits sleeping inside woke up to a bright light as their camp went up in flames. The protagonist appeared at their door, proclaiming himself the arsonist. He dodged and weaved through the chaos, avoiding direct conflict. When a group of bandits surrounded him, he easily dodged their attacks, knocked them out, and continued on. The loose-skinned man was unstoppable, moving like a bolt of lightning. Two guards at the main gate were distracted by a small thrown stone. When one bent down to pick it up, he noticed a bright flash behind him. The foolish guard realized the place he was supposed to be guarding was now on fire, and they ran desperately to help. At that moment, the hostages lurking at the gate took the opportunity to flee. The child's mother could only hope that their warrior savior would emerge alive from the chaos as she ran with all her might toward freedom. Our loose-skinned lord was running through the village trying to draw attention to himself, but his strength began to wane. He realized too late that someone was beside him, ready to strike. The man was too fast to dodge. The blow sent the loose-skinned man flying several meters. The leader of the bandits, the Rock, demanded to know who the intruder was. When Qianhui didn't respond, he was quickly surrounded. The last blow had caused him significant damage. The Rock ordered his men to put out the fire while he tried to recruit the intruder. Qianhui sat down to catch his breath and recover his spiritual energy. The bandit leader mused that recruiting talented bandits was harder than it seemed. He wondered about the intruder's strange behavior, meditating without a care in the world. In a short time, Qianhui's spiritual energy recovered, becoming frighteningly powerful. He then asked, "Why would a wolf serve a mere puppy?" Enraged, the leader ordered his men to crush him. In the ensuing chaos, his mask fell off, revealing his face, which was ugly due to all his loose skin. The battle continued. Qianhui was fast, and though the bandits weren't individually strong, they cooperated harmoniously. Working together, they finally managed to land a hit, making him fall to the ground. Even a lone lion could fall before a pack of battle-hardened hyenas. Realizing he had no other options, he changed his fighting style. He activated the immortal step of the 8 drunks, becoming lighter and clumsier, easily weaving through the guards. Even the leader was surprised by his movements. He changed his form again using the shadowless flight technique and moved as fast as lightning toward the leader. They exchanged a flurry of blows, but Qianhui knew the attacks were superficial. With his powers exhausted, his only escape was to fall directly off the cliff. As he fell, he thought, "I'm still no match for all of them. I'll be back to cut off all their heads." He then disappeared over the edge, showing his middle finger. This left the Rock seething with anger. He ordered his men to retrieve the body from below the cliff. But then one of his men arrived with a warning: the hostages had disappeared. This made the bald man even more furious, intensifying his desire to eliminate the loose-skinned lord. Meanwhile, falling from the cliff, Qianhui aimed to land as softly as possible in the water below. His fear was hitting the ground with the speed generated by the fall. He finally managed to stop his descent, but was soon pulled downwards by the current, sinking once again like the Titanic. After being pulled for a long time, he ended up in a cave on the other side. He just wanted to rest, exhausted from the battle, when suddenly the energy in his heart began to react to something, urging him forward. Soon he found it. After swimming through the cave, the loose-skinned man was startled by what he saw. In front of him was the millennial virgin ginseng, a beautiful plant emanating a powerful aura. Qianhui was so happy he started to cry. He remembered the beggar's words, saying it would be easy to find. He made a mental note: when he returned, he would set that beggar on fire. Without wasting any more time, he went to the millennial virgin ginseng and pulled it out of the ground with his hands. This was truly the legendary item, and it was now his. He even looked around to make sure it wasn't a prank. Not even the demon of chaos could have been faster than him. Still weighing nearly 1,000 pounds, he devoured the ginseng with immense happiness. Suddenly, his spiritual energy started to rise. Feeling so much pleasure, he couldn't stop eating the plant. Sitting down to cultivate, the loose-skinned man was overjoyed. Now he would overcome everything and everyone. Returning to the village, Qianhui's attendant Huang Bo was searching for information about his master. But since Qianhui had used a false name, the attendant couldn't find him. He wasn't there by choice. Back at the patriarch's mansion, while Huang Bo was sleeping, someone burst through the door shouting. It was the patriarch Cheon Ik-tai. Finding the attendant asleep, he started hitting him, threatening to make him sleep forever. This was the reason Huang Bo was now desperately searching for Qianhui. Sometime later, he found Qianhui's horse and started questioning a boy crying desperately about where the owner was. After learning he had gone to Pungwol Mountain, where many bandits lived, he started crying even more, imagining his master being beaten by criminals. He ran desperately into the frozen forest. It was raining heavily. The survivors from the captured village were running, searching for the nearest town. Someone was hidden behind a tree. It was the guide who had led Cheon-hui to the mountain. He was now pointing the way to the village for them. The woman thanked him for his kindness. The old man asked if she had seen a young man covered in bandages. Of course, she knew he was talking about her savior, who had sacrificed himself by staying behind to face the mountain bandits. Near a waterfall, the guards of the Nine Dragons clan were furious because they couldn't find the loose-skinned man. Suddenly, one of them pointed to the waterfall. A man was emerging from it, saying he had almost drowned. They couldn't understand how he had come out of the middle of the waterfall. The man, however, said they had saved him time since he was going to look for them anyway. The bandits had no idea who this man was. Elegantly brushing the hair from his eyes, he asked if they weren't looking for him. The men had no idea who he was because Cheon-hui's appearance had completely changed. He was no longer the loose-skinned man. Cheon-hui ordered them to take off their clothes and hand them over as he was cold. When they refused, he kicked one of them in the head with such force that it knocked him out with a single blow without even using his internal energy. Everyone was impressed and trembling with fear. Cheon-hui complained that his new clothes were now dirty, so he would need more. He said this while looking at the shivering guards who knew they would soon be without clothes. Finally, we have a handsome protagonist. Next, the bandits were all in their underwear, shivering. Cheon-hui was feeling the weight of his new weapon. Suddenly, with a cold look on his face, he decided to test it. The shivering men didn't even realize what was about to happen. A head was removed from its body with great ease. Laughing at the situation, Cheon-hui asked if they were just going to stand there and wait for their end. The men started begging for mercy, but he simply said he didn't want to. He had promised to cut off all their heads. They all ran in terror, but it was too late. They were all headless. The hunt had begun. Everyone on the mountain was subdued that day. No one escaped Cheon-hui's grasp. He even noticed that his new clothes were dirty again, so he went to the riverbank to clean up. He was astonished when he saw his reflection in the water. The loose-skinned man was now as handsome as a doll. He realized it was thanks to the millennial virgin ginseng. That was why the bandits hadn't recognized him. He was happy and a little embarrassed to have such a beautiful face. He was now as beautiful as his sister. He was soon startled by screams coming from the top of the mountain. The old guide was being tortured by the bandits. All the survivors had been captured again. The guide refused to give any information about the loose-skinned man and was about to be whipped again. However, the bandits' attention was drawn to a man standing in the snow staring at them. Cheon-hui made a strange gesture crouching in the snow. The bandits wondered if he was scooping snow to play. But his throwing strength was like a bomb. He quickly knocked out several bandits with just snowballs. He dealt with anyone who opposed him with lightning speed. The bandits could barely see him as he climbed up, then came down, exploding everything in his path. Those who survived this attack were soon decimated by his moon destroyer blow. Only one survived. Cheon-hui asked if the man was afraid of him, but the old guide, groaning in pain, couldn't even recognize him. Remembering the man's kindness in guiding him, Cheon-hui became furious. "Did you do this?" he asked the last bandit. The young man lied, saying it wasn't him, but with a single spear movement he was split in two. The survivors begged for mercy, but Cheon-hui wasn't there to hurt them. The guide soon realized who stood before him. Cheon-hui told him to go back to the village. Seeing the man couldn't speak, he infused spiritual energy into his body and cauterized his wounds. It wasn't the best treatment, but it was what he could do. Cheon-hui asked if anyone could carry the guide and ordered them to head to the village without looking back. As they left, he swore to the heavens that he would bring divine wrath upon the mountain bandits. The guards at the gate of the bandit village wondered why there was lightning on a sunny day in the middle of winter. Suddenly, one of them was decapitated so quickly he didn't even realize he had died. The other was killed in the same blow. Cheon-hui filled his lungs and shouted for the bald leader to come out and fight. He would have no mercy. He sliced through the bandits as if cutting a loaf of bread, determined to eliminate the entire clan from the earth. Suddenly, Cheon-hui was almost hit by an arrow. The bald leader's gang had arrived. This was what our protagonist was waiting for. At that moment, the familiar voice of Huang Bo was heard. He had brought men to destroy the Nine Dragons clan's camp. The guards attacked the bandits. The attendant's movements were not bad. After all, he was a skilled fighter. The bald leader called his subordinates to fight, but then decided to flee. How could Cheon-hui let this worm escape so easily? Incredulous that his pursuer was so persistent, the leader didn't recognize Cheon-hui's new look. But when he saw the middle finger raised, he remembered everything and became even more terrified. How was it possible that in one night he had become so strong? He now saw Cheon-hui's immense power. He was truly a martial arts master. His only option was to kneel and beg for mercy, offering women food and gold. But Cheon-hui asked, "When others ask for mercy, is it given to them?" He was punishing him on behalf of the heavens. He did what he came there to do. At that moment, Huang Bo appeared asking if he was okay, but he did not recognize the person in front of him as his young master. He asked about Qian Hui, calling him insolent, like his father, commenting on his ugly appearance, his personality, and how he used to eat like an ox. Qian Hui contemplated killing his attendant, but after finding out that this was indeed his young master, Huang Bo completely changed his tune, saying how handsome he had become. He then said they needed to go back or the patriarch would kill him. But Qian Hui hadn't finished dealing with the demon of chaos. Huang Bo retrieved a divine whip he used when he was an inspector. Qian Hui tried to run but was tied up and dragged back. On the way, he struck at Huang Bo, who defended himself. The young master's power surprised everyone. In just a few months, he had become strong enough to have an advantage against a former inspector, but he was soon surprised by an attack from behind. The other attendants could not disobey the patriarch's order. The battle was about to reach its climax when the old guide arrived. He thanked Qian Hui for saving their lives and informed him that the prisoners had escaped safely. While Qian Hui was distracted saying goodbye, Huang Bo tied him up, knocked him out to carry him more easily, and asked the villagers not to spread the word of his deeds. A nail that stands out gets hammered, and that would attract evil people. Sometime later, inside the cave, the millennial virgin ginseng was gone. The demon of chaos was there looking for it. He was so furious that it had been stolen that he almost unintentionally killed his own men. He ordered them to bring him the thief dead or alive, and to kill all his relatives. When Qian Hui finally woke up, he realized he had missed the chance to find the demon of chaos in the cave. But when the second divine creature, the Millennium Snail, appears, another opportunity will arise. They arrived at a gigantic and charming city. When Qian Hui got off the carriage, he realized he was in front of the Namgung clan's gate. He was stopped by the guards until his father, who was waiting for them, ordered them to lower their weapons. Noticing his father's concern, he tried to reciprocate the affection, but he was ignored. His father began to beat Huang Bo, saying he had dared to lie in his letter about Qian Hui being with him. Huang Bo pointed to the man next to him, saying that was his dear son. His father glanced at him, then went back to beating the attendant, asking how that handsome man could possibly be his son. When Qian Hui called him father, the man recognized his voice. "Are you really my dear son?" he asked, still not believing what he saw. The news quickly reached Namgung Castle. A captain reported that while the public story was that the patriarch's attendant solved the problems, it was actually Qian Hui who single-handedly exterminated the entire clan. This left Namgung Qian impressed and interested. The captain added that, to bring Qian Hui back, everyone had to work together to contain his power. The patriarch of the Namgung clan intervened, saying that his son Namgung Jin was being too skeptical. Qian Hui was the future heir of a gigantic clan born with martial talent who had also lost weight and become handsome. "You are ignoring the facts and believing rumors," he said. "I will personally take care of the marriage matters from now on." At a meeting between the patriarchs with Qian Hui in the middle, his father said he must take the military service exams. But Namgung Qian intervened, saying that no matter how talented he was, that path would only lead to becoming a general. If he trained with a good master, he could surpass a general and become a leader who saves the country and makes history. Hearing the phrase "save the country" excited Qian Hui. His amazed father asked if such a master existed. Namgung Qian said they wouldn't need to look. He himself, the retired patriarch of the Namgung clan, the Sword King Namgung Qian, intended to teach the boy.